And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Week 2 is upon us, and your guys here at the
Woo!
Fantasy Podcast have you ready and set to go for the kickoff in week 2, powered by rotoballer.com. As you can tell, we are surrounded by some new surroundings here. Rotoballer.com. Use the promo code WooFantasy for all your fun needs for premium content. We've got you set up and ready to go over there. Rotoballer.com. WooFantasy is the promo code, so go and check us out there. But as always, joined by the co-host there. You see him on the screen, Mr. Nick Heffley. How are we doing today?
Good, man. We I know if you joined us a little bit, we've had baby watch going on, and today might not necessarily be today, but we're heading in that direction. We're the mom and I are hopefully going to the hospital tonight and getting induced. We're scheduled to call in later, so we might see baby by Monday Night Football time tomorrow night.
Yeah, Woo Baby on the way finally.
Woo Baby.
The countdown is upon us, so on the lookout there. But of course, we've got to take care of a little bit of work first.
Well, and the doctor really loves me because they could have scheduled it last night and done it to where I would have missed all day today, but the doctor loves me, so giving me a chance to watch football all day today. My wife loves that because she knows how much obviously that I'm into it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely one wonderful doctor that you have there that has you really ready to watch a little bit of football all day before you go in for the baby.
I'm a big fan. Thanks, Dr. Killian. Appreciate that.
But yes, like I said, we have a little bit of work to put on the table first. It's week 2 is upon us.
Hopefully you listened to us last week. We were dropping some dimes last week.
Yeah, we definitely were.
Both made a little FanDuel money there.
Yeah, I made quite a bit, last week as well. Hopefully to do the same way this week. Got quite a bit of lineups in. I'm feeling good about the lineups that I have set and ready to go, but I don't know about you. But we're just a few minutes away from inactives dropping, but we're here to get everybody set for their week 2 fantasy football lineups. Get to everybody here in just a second. But injuries. It seems to be the biggest thing of the day again. Just like in week 1, it seems to tell the story for week 2. We have quite a bit on the docket, and of course, I've got the names scrolling on the bottom of the screen. You can see there's a lot of big names out there. Of course, we'll start off with the biggest one, Michael Thomas being declared out finally for Monday Night Football, so we don't have that cloud hanging over us.
Yeah, I know there was some talk that he could be out there and kind of be a decoy, which I was about. But even in the leagues that I have Michael Thomas in, there's no way I was going to start him.
How do you, with him officially being out, how are you viewing this situation now? What are you leaning from a fantasy football perspective towards? I mean, it's not a great matchup, but it's not a terribly difficult matchup. But with Michael Thomas out of the lineup, how's that going to affect the fantasy football implications for the Saints in week 2?
The easiest answer would be Emmanuel Sanders. That he would just kind of slot into that position. But I think the two guys, to be quite honest, that are going to have the biggest impact in this, Jared Cook instantly vaults up into the top 5 tight end discussion there. He is going to get used, especially this week, like crazy. I think the other huge one, and you and I kind of differ on the secondary receiver who's going to take the biggest jump from this. A name to look out for, by the way, and I'm not going to say his name right now, that he's going to be impactful now, but look out for former Tennessee receiver Marquez Callaway, that he could come out. I know he impressed in camp, but the guy who I think this week, and I picked up in most of the leagues that I actually could get him, is Tre'Quan Smith. You heard a lot of buzz from Drew Brees saying that Tre'Quan Smith was going to be the man. So that is who I'm picked up. And I've got a couple leagues to where, I've got a Jamison Crowder or a Kenny Galladay that's out. I'm starting Tre'Quan Smith this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a wait-and-see mode with Tre'Quan Smith. I did pick him up in the Flex League on SiriusXM in the waivers that ran this past week, but I'm kind of in wait-and-see mode with that particular setup. That one's one where I'm taking a hit yet again in week 2 here with that league. I'm missing Chris Godwin out of that lineup. Week 1 I was missing Cortland Sutton. So injuries seem to be following me throughout the first part of this season. So, but I did pick up Tre'Quan Smith. I do want to see how things are going to unfold here with him in that offense. I mean, he's had the chance before, and he's not really proven to be, somebody that you can count on consistently. For me, I think I'm going to veer more towards, the Jared Cook and Alvin Kamara. I think is going to get even more of a bigger role in the passing game in week 2.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that he could definitely be playing a little bit more of a role, but I mean, I don't think he's going to see that much of an uptick necessarily. I mean, he had a lot of usage last week. I mean, granted, he was in the end zone twice. He caught the ball. I mean, is he going to vault up to, the Austin Eckler from last year kind of territory? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be that much more than what he was getting before. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's going to be the bigger thing to watch for with the Saints on Monday night this week is going to be how the passing game is going to be, how that's going to be displayed in this matchup, where the target's going to go. That remains to be seen. But from a fantasy perspective with Drew Brees, how do you feel about Drew Brees in this matchup now, losing his biggest weapon from a fantasy football perspective?
I don't think it changed anything. If you were going to start him, on Monday, with Michael Thomas in, you're still starting him, no matter what here. He's still got weapons out there that he's throwing the ball to. It's not like Sam Darnold out there where you got nobody really to throw the ball to here. You got some weapons still. So if you were starting him earlier in the week, you're still starting him now.
Yeah, that's how I'll look at that as well. Transition a little bit over, of course, some other big names that we have that are out here for week 2, like I mentioned as well, was Chris Godwin being taken out for the Bucs with the issue with the concussion. How are we viewing that particular passing situation here in week 2 now?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans jumps way up. If you were trying to trade for him after last week, I hope you did it before the Chris Godwin news came out, because there's no way that owner's doing any kind of deals for him now. So
no,
Mike Evans should, I think, have a big week this week. And yeah, we talked about last week that I didn't really like him, but I think you gotta like him now. Is Scotty Miller? I think he's just been more kind of a dump down and get the ball out of the way. So I think he's going to kind of come into that Chris Godwin role, and he's going to get some catches. I'm looking at least 5 to 6 catches this week.
Yeah, that's the trendy name, especially on.
Is he going by Scott? Is that just something the fantasy community's done, or is it Scotty? Because last year was
Scotty Miller.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what they want to put out there. Yeah, no, it's Scott Miller. So definitely go and check us out there. It's the biggest thing that everyone wants to use is Scotty Miller as the trendy pickup this week and to plug and play. I mean, most people are always wanting to use, that slot receiver for a Tom Brady. He's always anticipated to put up big points, big value. But for me, I just, I'm not so certain that he's going to be the guy you want in this passing attack in week 2. I mean, you mentioned Mike Evans. I think that there's going to be an uptick for him in terms of targets this week. But, of course, one guy that I think is kind of flying under the radar, and I'm looking to put in some DFS lineups this week, O.J. Howard. I think O.J. Howard's going to get a bump this week in targets and looks in that Tampa Bay offense. The matchup is great. I think Brady and even the running game behind Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, I think they're going to be able to have their way with Carolina and that defense. So, for me, I like Mike Evans. I like O.J. Howard with Chris Godwin being out.
Yeah, I mean, you saw O.J. Howard have a decent week last week. To be honest, I don't really even know if the Tampa passing offense is really going to do a whole lot this week. Maybe outside of Mike Evans getting in the end zone, that might be the only passing touchdown Tom Brady has. I think we're gonna see a lot of Ronald Jones, a lot of Leonard Fournette this week.
Yeah, so we got a question to plug into you guys here real quick. Max Linscott here, following the show, wants to check and see Parker, Miller, or Paris Campbell full point PPR. Who are you going with in week 2?
We're going with the Woo Fantasy favorite, Anthony Miller, in this scenario. Parker's been questionable all week coming in. He doesn't exactly have a great matchup this week anyway. You're going to have Tre'Davious White on him. I'm not really trusting Devontae Parker there. Paris Campbell's a guy, for me, I think the guy this week there is going to be T.Y. Hilton. I've got him in a lot of FanDuels this week, so I think Anthony Miller is going to be the guy in this scenario, full PPR, that I'm going for. Anthony Miller had a great week last week. I think he's going to be the guy that you kind of saw a flash of exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah, that is probably a very big coin toss for me between the latter two here in that scenario. I love Anthony Miller. That's going on for 3 years now with him being in the league. Paris Campbell is a guy I was really high on coming into the league last year. Of course, the injuries played a factor in him being down most of the season.
And it's just coming out. Sorry to interrupt. Devontae Parker is active.
Yeah. I even still facing Tre'Davious White. I'm kind of, I'm pivoting away from him in this matchup. But for me, yeah, let me have Anthony Miller in the matchup. I think that's going to be more of a back and forth game between the Bears and the Giants. So I think that there's going to be a bigger chance for Anthony Miller to provide a steady floor with even a healthy upside in that matchup. I know they're going to force feed the ball into Allen Robinson, given all the news from this past week, and he wants the big contract and the extension. But I think there's going to be plenty of balls to go around in this matchup, and I think Anthony Miller is going to be the guy to go with.
We told you last week, start Mitch Trubisky. We hope you did. So, but it's going to be a Mitch week again this week.
Yeah, I mean the matchups are there for him so far early on in the season to really take advantage of and post some big numbers. So I think Mitch Trubisky yet again is a guy that you can kind of get some low end value out of, especially in FanDuel lineups. That's definitely another one. I got another question popped in here. Scott Miranda, similar question. Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, and Russell Gage wanting to know who you would go with here. For me, I think that one's an easy answer for me.
Ooh, okay. Who you going?
I'm going with Russell Gage. I mean, I think he was highly targeted in that matchup last week. And, it was a high-scoring game as well. I think that's going to be the same from a scenario this week between the Falcons and the Cowboys. So I think you're going to be in a position where I want to get in all the guys that I can get in possible in that matchup on both sides of the ball, whether they're the Falcons, whether they're the Cowboys. I think Russell Gage, is he going to give you another 9-catch, 100-yard performance again this week? Possibly not. I mean, but if he gives you a good 5 to 6 catches for an 80 yards and a score this week, it's a fantastic week for a guy that you could plug in as your wide receiver 3.
I'm going to lean the exact same thing, but I'll say this to say, if Cortland Sutton's going to be out, I think you got to go with Jeudy. You're going from the number 3 or 4 guy in Russell Gage to a guy like Jeudy, who's possibly the 2 or the 3 there, depending on if Sutton plays. I think Sutton is going to play. Everything is trending toward that direction here this week. I have got Justin Jefferson in a couple leagues, and I am so tempted to start him this week. He had some bad numbers last week. The snap share wasn't exactly where you would want him to have it kind of trending into a start. So if you want to be bold, I think you go Justin Jefferson. If not, I think like Brandon, I'm going with Gage.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm going to go with that particular scenario there. As we're kind of coming into the games again this week, another big inactive, Kenny Golladay for the Lions, missing week 2 yet again. How's your view this week with that particular matchup there?
I called it last week, B. I called it Danny Amendola. You need to pick him up and start him if you had a spot, and those people were rewarded. You didn't get a touchdown, but you got those catches, and I think you're going to get exactly that again this week. They're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to be down. Danny Amendola, I think, is going to be a great option. We called it last week, too. You called it T.J. Hockenson getting in the end zone, which you did last week. So I think Marvin Jones is going to come out a little bit more. But, Danny Amendola is going to be that guy. He's just going to go out and get 6-7 catches again, probably very similar. I think he may sneak in the end zone this week. So, but the running back situation, there is tough to where – I think they're going to try to force feed these guys, so it's going to be a little bit more balanced of an attack there to where it makes the receiving options a little bit more difficult to be able to see who exactly you want to start on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, no, I think this week going on the road playing the Green Bay Packers, the matchup is kind of juicy for the Lions in that particular offense, but we've seen them kind of struggle in the past a little bit too as well on the road in Green Bay. So for me, I've had a lot of questions throughout the week as far as Hockenson goes. I'm a little bit down on him in the matchup because Green Bay's defense has done rather well. If you date back into the beginning of the first week of 2019, just a season ago, they've been one of the toughest defenses in the league against fantasy tight ends. So I'm actually going to kind of back off of TJ Hockenson a little bit this week. I mean, I would play guys like Logan Thomas ahead of TJ Hockenson this week. I would play even, for a long shot, I would pull a Dan Arnold name out of the hat this week and plug him in and play him over at TJ Hockenson. And a yuck comes over the face.
Hell no.
A great matchup.
You're smoking.
A great matchup.
You're kidding. Yeah, he's got a great matchup. How many catches did he have last week, Brandon?
2.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
all those weapons. Why? Yeah, there's no way I would start Dan Arnold. Hell,
I
wouldn't even have
really
Dan
good
Arnold
about
on my roster, Brandon.
Dan Arnold is a guy that I would actually play this week. I mean, we'll talk about it later on.
I will make you a bet right now. Dan Arnold will not have 3 catches in this game.
Oh, I will take that bet. I will take that bet. Dan Arnold against one of the defenses dating back to the beginning of 2019 has been one of the worst in fantasy against opposing tight ends. Yeah, I think Dan Arnold's going to be in store for a very fruitful day. I mean, is he going to be to the extreme of a DeAndre Hopkins in that offense this week? No. But is he going to have the chance to get you into the end zone? Sure. There's a chance he'll get you in the end zone.
Everybody has a chance to get in the end zone.
Yeah, everybody has a chance, but he has a very good chance. I like how I think I like how Dan Arnold's shaped up in that matchup. Yeah, I've moved him up in my rankings this week.
I'd rather have Roseanne Arnold than Dan Arnold.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure you would. But some of the inactives are coming out. Big one, if we want to go back to the Falcons Cowboys game, a big one for today's game. Tyron Smith being out for the Cowboys offensive line. How does that affect you as far as what you feel like in terms of, especially Ezekiel Elliott? How do you feel that that's going to shape up for them?
It's not. If you're starting Ezekiel Elliott, you're going to start him anyway here. I think. What's
the expectation, though? Is it going to, for me, as an Ezekiel Elliott owner and also a Cowboys fan, I think it's going to have an adverse effect on this game.
Really?
It will.
Have you seen the Falcons defense? They are horrible.
I've seen Tack McKinley and in that defensive line, especially the ends, be able to get around and get to the quarterback.
They can, but that's not going to affect Zeke in the run game.
It's gonna affect the offense in general. We've seen it before. Whenever Tyron Smith, over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, Tyron Smith misses games for the Cowboys, it affects that offense. It really does.
Ask my boy Jason Weber. He's listening out there. He's a Falcons fan. He knows how bad the Falcons defense is. Zeke is gonna have a nice week. I think. No,
I'll give you that. Everything on the back end,
over 100 total yards and a touchdown this week.
Yeah, everything on the back end of that particular defense is not great whatsoever. But if they can get to Dak Prescott and disrupt his rhythm, yeah, I think it's gonna affect him somewhat throughout this game today. Yeah, I definitely feel that.
Okay.
So the other big
Sutton active, by the way. Let's see, yeah. Golden Tate active. Who we got? Any surprise inactives? I don't see anybody.
I don't believe so. I think this has kind of been a good scenario for us. Is that most of the guys that we were really monitoring, or that are going to be big effects in fantasy football for week 2, have already been declared out.
That's one of the good things that has one of the very few good things for fantasy football owners that has come out with all this is teams aren't flying days in advance like they have been. You got to get on the team plane like the day before. If you ain't on the team plane, we know you're going to be out. So
yeah.
So at least for the traveling teams, that's maybe one of the few good things about this Corona crap going on is we know who's playing, we know who's going with the team.
Let's see, another question that come in real quick. I'll throw it out there to you. Would you go with Dallas Goedert over Hayden Hurst and Jonnu Smith this week in week 2? How do you feel about that?
Definitely over Hayden Hurst. Man, yeah, I just feel God, it's really close between Jonnu Smith and Goddard. It really is. With AJ Brown being out this week, Smith has a chance to get some receptions, but I mean, Derrick Henry's gonna is just going to go off. He has the Jaguars number. How many times do the Titans really need to throw the ball? So that's my concern. I am definitely starting Jeudy Smith in a couple leagues, but I'm starting Goddard in a couple leagues too.
Yeah.
If it had to came down, gun to my head, who am I starting? Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I've got Goddard inside my top 10 this week, even with Zach Ertz there. I think they're both going to be able to produce this week in that matchup. But with A.J. Brown being out, it makes it a lot closer than what I would had originally expected with Jonnu Smith there. I think that a lot of the targets in the offense are going to funnel through Jonnu Smith this week. Of course, I think we saw Darrington Evans is out as well. So there's not really a lot of pass catching options for the Titans this week. You can say Adam Humphries, but are we really, really going to buy into Corey Davis?
Well, I mean, Corey Davis is not a bad option. I think he's one of those people that a lot of people this week want to go in with a FanDuel guy is a cheap option. You know, I went out and grabbed him in some leagues. I think the matchup you would think is a juicy one this week, but the Titans are going to run the ball. So if you've got Corey Davis thinking you're going to throw out a big-time sleeper in FanDuel and hit, I think you're going to be sorely mistaken. He's probably going to be more like a 4 for 50 or 60. I don't think he's going to find the end zone today. So I think he's good here for the next couple of weeks, maybe while A.J. Brown is out. But this week is not the week I want to start him.
No, I'm not at all. I'm right there with you with the Derrick Henry call. Derrick Henry is in every single one of my DFS lineups for week 2. I've got him in every single FanDuel lineups. You've seen him dominate the Jaguars time after time after time, including that 99-yard run last year in the game. So, yeah, I'm all in on Derrick Henry this week. You might see a similar setup to what we saw with Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs last year. Tannehill may throw the ball like 11 to 12 times in this game, and it'd be all Derrick Henry at that point. So if you flip it to the reverse side of that matchup and go to Gardner Minshew and the Jaguars offense, how do you feel like they're going to shake out? This is a little bit tougher of a defense in week 2 for them to face. They're on the road playing the Titans. How do you look at Gardner Minshew in this offense, and who's a player that you're kind of eyeing for them on that side of the ball?
I think it's going to be a bad week for Gardner Minshew. I think it's going to be, one of those to where they're going to be down. They're going to have to be throwing the ball. So I don't necessarily like a lot of James Robinson. I love James Robinson, actually, that he's the share that he's getting out of that backfield there. Wow. So yeah, insta pickup. If he's still out there in your league, he should not be. But if he's still out there, you need to go grab him. I don't necessarily think he's going to be in for a great week this week, but it's tough really with asking who to start, because I think Minshew may wind up with like a touchdown this week. The easy name would be to say DJ Shark, and that would be the easy name. But man, is Dede Westbrook going to play? Have we seen that? Because he was a healthy scratch last week. So
I haven't seen the update on Dede Westbrook just yet. No.
It almost feels like either a Chris Conley or a Laviska Shenault, kind of touchdown week. I think Shark may see, again, kind of like Corey Davis numbers, like your 50, 60 yards or so. But I think the touchdown is going to go elsewhere here. So if you got Gardner Minshew, I don't think this is the week to start him.
So kind of diving back in with the inactives, everything. Of course, the other big one that we know of for week 2 here is George Kittle. George Kittle being a big loss for the 49ers passing attack, which is already at a disadvantage. They've got Deebo Samuel on the short-term IR.
They had to bring in Mohamed Sanu.
They had to go sign Mohamed Sanu, which, granted, he has a pass with Kyle Shanahan, the Atlanta Falcons offense. But Brandon Aiyuk is supposed to be making his 49ers debut today in that game as well. How do you view this passing attack? It's a great matchup for Jimmy Garoppolo this week, but do you think that the loss of weapons is really going to affect his fantasy output?
Not against that defense. I don't think it's going to have too big an effect. I think you're going to see them do what they usually always do. They're going to run the ball. They're going to work off that and mix in play action and get the ball downfield. Who does it throw out? It throws out a deep sleeper option to throw out in some FanDuels this week of Jordan Reed. It feels like it's like 2016 again, trying to start Jordan Reed in some leagues. But, I think that's where it's trending toward. You saw him. He actually got mixed in and got some action last week. So, So if I'm throwing out a nice little sleeper in FanDuel, Jordan Reed, I think is a great option there. Everything else I think is a little too questionable for me to be able to want to go into. I would have thought Kendrick Bourne would have had some action last week, and he didn't. This is and I know we've had some leagues out there where people are dropping guys like Deebo Samuel out there. Scoop him up, because when he comes back, he is going to go off.
Yeah, no, I do think that's good. That's got to go grab, especially if he's on the waiver wire. If people kind of gave up on him after the short-term IR placement. He'll be back. He'll be the normal Deebo Samuel. I think the way that it's looked with that passing attack for the 49ers so far, I think if more than anything, it reaffirms how I feel about Deebo Samuel year long. Is he's going to be the alpha in that receiving group. He's going to be the guy to own there outside of George Kittle. For me, that's definitely the guy you want to have on your roster, sitting and waiting for him to come back off that IR. So outside of that, the other one, we've got another one with Philip Lindsay being out. How do you view Melvin Gordon this week? Tough matchup, Pittsburgh, getting the lion's share of the carries now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any hope whatsoever that Melvin Gordon with a large workload is going to provide a great day in fantasy?
I mean, look back at the matchup last week. You had Saquon out there. How many yards did Saquon rush for? 6?
A lot. Yeah, a lot.
Not good. The one thing that I think you're going to get with Gordon here, though, and the reason I'm starting him as my flex, he should not. You hopefully should have some running back options to start in front of Melvin Gordon out there. But in my flex, I'm starting him in a couple leagues where it makes sense, just because I think he's going to get some balls out of the backfield. I think he's going to have some catches enough to be able to warrant. I think it's going to be a low total yardage game, but I think he's going to get in the end zone. I think he's going to sneak in. You're probably looking 70 yards, 3 to 4 catches, type of a game. It's not going to be great, but he's going to give you a nice floor out there. Again, I don't think he's going to have an awesome rushing game. I think he's going to get some catches and sneak a touchdown in.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's going to be a tricky thing, though, with Melvin Gordon. I like the volume he's going to get. They're going to be playing from behind. We've seen now, of course, we mentioned it, Cortland Sutton is active.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of go
looking good.
It looks good somewhat, but I've read some beat reports throughout the week that he's been battling that shoulder in practice all week long. So how much of a factor do you think Sutton's going to be in this matchup?
I'm starting him. In the leagues that I have Cortland Sutton in, I'm starting him. I think he is going to again, I think it's going to be one of those situations. I've got Big Ben going in some leagues. I think he's going to do well with the uncertainty with the rushing game. There for the Steelers. So I think he's going to have a big week, but I think Drew Lock, I think the Broncos are going to have to pass the ball because they're going to be down. Yeah,
they will have to pass the ball. They will be down. I think it's going to be a boomer bust week for Cortland Sutton. How do you feel about Jerry Jeudy on the other side of the ball? It kind of was up and down last week, had a problem with some drops, dates back to what he had issues with in college. Do you think that single coverage with Jeudy with Cortland Sutton there maybe opens things up for Jerry Jeudy to find some success this week? No.
Not touching Jerry Jeudy this week. Especially again, just like we talked right before the inactives got announced there. With Cortland Sutton Jerry Jeudy was out, that'd be a little different story. But with Cortland Sutton in, with Fant at least out there, I really don't see that Jerry Jeudy is going to be a startable option for me anyway this week.
Yeah, I'm kind of shying away from, I've got Drew Lock in the Scott Fish Bowl. I'm actually keeping him out of the lineup this week in that matchup as one of my super flex options, going with Daniel Jones in that matchup against the Bears. So I'm actually kind of out on Broncos altogether in that matchup against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. But if you go to the other side of the ball, some other injury questions coming in. Of course, we saw James Conner completely fall on his face and disappoint last week with the injury. The ankle injury is what I will refer to that as, because I think that guy's, it seems like he might be as soft as Charmin tissue at this point in time. But he completely ruined a lot of people's week ones by going out. But Benny Snell comes in and looks fantastic. Now they're talking splitting the carries in that Pittsburgh Steelers backfield. Do you buy into that? And if you do, which side are you really you going to take between the two options?
I still want James Conner. He's a guy I believed in before the season got going here. Coming into a week like this week, it's tough to start him. For instance, I've got leagues with him, and I'm deciding between him and Ronald Jones. I'm going with Ronald Jones this week until he's going to have a prove it kind of a week. Unless I've got an injury in front of him that forces me to start him, I'm questioning that. Although I do have some leagues that I'm playing him in this week. Again, Snell is good. There's not a scenario where I want to start Benny Snell in this week. I think that is a home run kind of a move. You're going to have a lot of things go right for you if Benny Snell is going to have any kind of fantasy relevance this week.
Yeah, for me, that seems like it's a kind of a pull, like a sneaky pull there with Benny Snell. I don't like what he brings to the table. I think just that matchup played well for him last week, and the offensive line really opened up some holes, and he took advantage of it. Where this week here, I think if you put them both on the same pedestal, James Conner's the more talented back, brings a little bit more to this offense. I think James Conner, a guy that hopefully is healthy, saw another back potentially taking his job coming up. Yeah, I think playing with a chip on his shoulder, needs a contract. James Conner's going to have to get on that field and perform. And a guy that has that kind of a chip on his shoulder, that's a guy that I want to roll out there.
He needs to get a bottle rocket lit up his butt. Let's go.
He really does.
Come on, man.
Here we go. Got another question coming in. Adam Arnold here sending us the question.
Dan Arnold's brother.
Yeah, Dan Arnold's brother, Adam, with the question. DJ Chark, Will Fuller, Terry McLaurin, Anthony Miller. Pick 2 out of this grouping for the matchups this week.
So we're definitely going Will Fuller, and it's tough between McLaurin and Miller, but I think we're going to go Miller. McLaurin's going to be matched up on Patrick Peterson there. Again, I think they're going to be throwing the ball and having to throw the ball because they're going to be down. We talked about Chark earlier, what we think he's going to get there, but I'm going Fuller and Miller for me. I'm assuming full PPR. If it's not, that's a different answer, but.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that as well. For me, I think Fuller's going to be in there for sure, because they're going to be playing from behind against the Baltimore Ravens defense. There's going to be a lot of opportunities late in that game for some garbage time points for Fuller. We saw he was really highly utilized last week. Let's just hope he stays healthy and stays on the field throughout this entire game.
It's his only question usually.
For me, though, DJ Chark or Terry McLaurin is the question. Now, I believe you're going to be in situations with both where they're playing from behind. Who do I trust at quarterback more? Do I trust Dwayne Haskins or do I trust Gardner Minshew? I think I'm going to go with Chark in that matchup. So we're both on Fuller. I like Chark.
You're starting Chark over Anthony Miller.
I am, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's the talent coupled with the matchup, coupled with the quarterback. I think, Miller, like I said, I think he has a nice floor this week, but I do see that the Bears are going to funnel a lot of those targets in through Allen Robinson this week, try to keep the disgruntled receiver happy. But whereas DJ Chark is, he's the alpha out of that receiving group. He's going to be the guy that demands targets in a game in which they're going to be trailing. So, yeah, give me DJ Chark and Will Fuller there. Hopefully that's a somewhat of a help between the two of us. Because you were going with McLaurin.
Good problem to have, Adam.
Yeah, that is definitely. I like that setup at receiver there. I'm assuming that those are going to be his top 2 starts: wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for the week, in a 2 wide receiver starting league. So yeah, I like that. Got a lot of promise there with those receivers though. One thing I would probably point out: guys got the Woo Fantasy mindset. He went heavy at running back very early in his draft. That's what I would think. So outside of that, we'll kind of go transition back in, kind of look at some of the games, some of the ones we really haven't touched on just yet. We'll go Rams, Eagles. I want to look at that matchup real quick. We saw Carson Wentz really struggle against the Redskins last week with the just makeshift offensive line. This week, they're back at home, but another tough matchup with a Los Angeles Rams front that really caused some problems with Dallas last week and got to Dak Prescott and disrupted him a lot as well. Are any interest in Carson Wentz this week? Are you hoping beyond hope that he's going to put up some kind of a number? Or do you think he's just going to kind of fall flat again this week because of the offensive line issues? Jason Peters supposed to be back in this matchup this week.
Yeah.
How healthy is he is the question.
I think having him out there at all is just a big boon to that offense for sure, because you saw how bad it got in the second half last week. He was trending so well last week, and it was lining up to be such a great week. And man, in the second half, the football team decided to get to him quite a bit there.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm at on Wentz this week. It's going to be matchup specific. I mean, he is a decent play. He is a fringe QB1, but I use fringe very lightly there. So, like for instance, I've got Josh Allen and Carson Wentz. I'm going Josh Allen. I've got Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott. I'm going Dak Prescott. I've got Carson Wentz and Big Ben. I'm going Big Ben. So it depends on who your quarterback is and how long you waited out there for him. If you've got Carson Wentz out there at home, I mean, they're gonna throw the ball, but I think he's gonna get maybe 2 touchdowns this week. I mean, he's not gonna have a great week, I don't think. So,
well, by comparison, just throw mine out there. I have Carson Wentz coming into the week at week 2, ranked 21st at quarterback.
There's not too many you're starting ahead of him. Gotcha.
I mean, I'm starting almost everyone ahead of Carson Wentz this week in my fantasy matchups. And now, I mean, this is coming from a guy that, humble pat on the back brag was one of the best in ranking quarterbacks in the industry last week for week 1.
Did you have top 6 there that nobody else did? Or what was it? Josh Allen and Trubisky there?
I mean, I had Trubisky at 7 last week. I mean, there was a lot of guys that I had up the chart a little bit. A lot of people are down. I was well ahead of the field consensus wise on Mitch Trubisky last week, and that helped pay off.
So real quick, because I know people are listening out there probably doing some DFS lineups there. Who's your Trubisky or Josh Allen of this week?
Golly, man, that's a tough one. It really is. If I really wanted to deep dive down the board really, really far ways, I would probably go with a Dwayne Haskins. Yeah, that's the ultimate reach. I don't want to pay up for my quarterback whatsoever, but the game script is going to be in his favor. I mean, he's got some weapons, but how are they going to utilize them in that matchup is the thing for me. For me, like my DFS lineups, the guys that I was really honed in on and playing this week, it was really focusing on this Dallas and Atlanta matchup. And I also did a couple lineups with Phillip Rivers as well. Phillip Rivers is a guy that I kind of targeted this week also. But I mean, let me ask you that question if we want to kind of stay on DFS for a little bit. Who's the top matchup for you this week across the board, all positions? Who's the one guy that you're plugging into your lineups?
Let's go and pull my FanDuel lineups here. Let's see. So Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor are in a lot of lineups there this week. The 2 other guys outside of that, for somebody who I think is he fortunately for him, his counterpart Robert Woods has got a tough matchup against Darius Slay. This is going to be a Cooper Kupp week, I think. He had a stinker last week, so I think it's going to be a good Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee week this week. The other guy, I talked about T.Y. Hilton. I think he's going to have a good week this week as well. And if you're looking for a little bit of a deeper sleeper, he is still pretty cheap out there, and they're going to have to throw the ball. You don't agree with me, but I don't give a crap. Brashad Perryman, I told you about him last year. I told you about him in championship time last year. I told you to go pick him up. You thought it was Scotty Miller. Brashad Perryman blew the hell up. Brashad Perryman, deep sleeper here this week. What about you, B?
I get the mindset. I get where you're coming from with Perryman. The only thing for me is I just don't think that offense in general is going to have success regardless of how much that they're down. I don't think that they're going to be able to move the ball with success much in that game. For me, it's just so many missing pieces there. You got Le'Veon Bell out as well. We're starting the ageless wonder, Frank Gore. It's just
who do you, hey, there's a great question. Who do you think is ultimately, until Le'Veon Bell comes back, who is the running back to own in that backfield for you? If you're touching it.
You earlier on this week, you heard Sam Darnold mention that if they could get LaMichael Pirine healthy, that's a guy that he really wants to get out there on the field because he's excited of what he brings to the table for that offense. So, I mean, for me, if I'm going to, prospectively pick up a player, sit and hope for the best, I'm going to go ahead and go grab LaMichael Pirine, just to stash him at the end of my roster and see how things shake out. So, but getting back to the Brashad Perriman aspect of this, 3 catches last week. It was, a lot of it was funneled in through Jamison Crowder, who's now out this week, of course. Denzel Mims will not play also. I mean, we've got Chris Hogan out there just, running on the field for cardio purposes. It's just not a lot going on there for the Jets. So, Perriman is a guy, if you're in a bind, you don't have a lot of options at wide receiver. You're missing your Chris Godwins of the world. You're missing your Kenny Galladays of the world. You're missing Mike Thomas's of the world. If you're looking at a guy like Brashad Perriman, you need to plug in to fill that wide receiver 3 spot this week. Sure, it's not going to be that bad of a deal, but do I have any excitement for him to play him? No. Is he in my DFS lineups? No, not. I did not go deep dive down to Brashad Perriman. We'll see how that shakes out for the real FF GOAT later on today after that game is over with. But here we go. Got another question coming in here. We got A Marquez 92590 shooting us a question here. Half point PPR. Sam Darnold. This is super flex as well. Sam Darnold, Naheem Hines, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams. Should he bench Sam against the 49ers defense and leave the others in, or with it being that super flex, do you want to keep Sam Darnold in? And if that's going to be the question, I would assume you're going to sit one of those other players.
So I'm assuming it also is 6 points for a touchdown. Let's assume that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, the question is between Darnold and Sutton. I think Naheem and Mike Williams could have good weeks, but I think Sutton out of the 3 of those is the guy I would start. So really, for me, the question is either Sutton or Sam Darnold. Ah, man, that's a tough one. But
it is.
I'm assuming, again, we're assuming this is 6 points for a touchdown. If that's the case, I think I'm going to have to go with Sam Darnold. I think you always go the quarterbacks in these situations in a super flex. That's where I'm using. Now, if it's a full point PPR, that is a completely different, story. I would probably lend to go Sutton, but I really don't think that the Jets are going to run the ball effectively in this game. So I think they're going to be down. They're going to be chucking. Richard Sherman is out this week, so I think you've got a defense that as Kyler Murray showed last week, is going to allow some passing yards. So I'm sticking with the quarterback.
I agree. I think half point PPR banged up Cortland Sutton. I'm not going to see a lot. I mean, as much as I have Cortland Sutton in some fantasy leagues, I'm hoping for the best. I'm probably even going to trot him out in 1 or 2 of the leagues just because of issues, with the bench and other injuries. But for me, that half point PPR setup and the potential 6 points per passing touchdown. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold there as well. I think you're usually always going to play your quarterbacks in that super flex position. So hopefully throw them in there, Marquez. We got you set up, man.
Yeah, and hey, real quick, A Marquez, go ahead and out there, take some – if you don't have them already, take some speculative flyers on somebody like a Justin Herbert. I think that's going to pay some dividends for you with some of these backup quarterbacks that are coming in because, I like Sam Darnold. I've got him as a number 3 in some leagues there, but having him week out with these questions here, it's definitely time to pick up some speculative quarterback ads for you on the latter half of your bench or make some trades because you're deciding on those guys. Somebody like Sutton and Naheem Hines and Mike Williams, it's time to make some deals and go get a solid number 2 quarterback to where you're kind of picking and playing your matchups with Darnold there, especially when we get to bye weeks here in a couple weeks.
He did chime back in and also send an answer back into that he already has Herbert and Tua.
Okay, there we go. Hey, smart man.
That was a very smart pickup.
Smart man.
Dynasty Superflex too. That's a combo of 2 different type of leagues. I do like that. That's you don't see that very often with
that's
Superflex
nice.
Dynasty. That is good.
You're set up nice for the future there, man.
He is definitely set up nice for the future. I'll give him that. But
hey, but I think still I think if you're in contention for a championship though, I don't think you're going to see a ton of 2 in Herbert at least until the end to where if you've got some depth out there, I definitely think it's time to trade for a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Jared Goff, somebody that could give you some good points that you're not gonna have to break the bank for.
All right, so kind of chime back in. We'll jump back in with some DFS stuff, unless we get some other questions rolling in here before we'll call it a day. But for, like I did mention earlier, I'm big on Derrick Henry this week. I think he's the one guy that I'm going to own in every single one of my lineups this week. I will roster Derrick Henry quite a bit this week. Of course, another one too that I've got him paired up with is Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor.
Why you copy me, dude? Jeez.
Jonathan Taylor, 5,800 on FanDuel was just an unavoidable price.
Crazy
the guy's going to put
value.
Obviously wide receiver. He's going to put up running back one numbers this week with that matchup at home against a beat up Minnesota Vikings defense. So that is another one too. We do have another question that just popped in. Want to throw that up there to you. Pick 3 half-point PPR. This is from Joe Debner. Hines, Nyheim Hines, James Conner, Josh Kelley, Brandon Aiyuk, Emmanuel Sanders, and our boy there, Scotty Miller. Half-point PPR here. Who are you going with? You got 3 here.
Wow. I'm definitely
for me, I'm going to go
Sanders.
Okay, that's your definite. For me, the definite is Nyheim Hines.
Really?
Yeah.
Half-point PPR.
I think he finds the end zone again.
Wow. Okay. I think I'm going Scooty.
Okay.
Yep. I think we're going Scooty. So, yeah. So, for me, on my side B, I'm going Emmanuel Sanders, Scotty Miller, and really the choice is between Nyheim Hines and Connor. It's hard
Splitting
for me to
carries.
It's hard for me to bench Connor, with Nyheim Hines. I think Hines is going to get some work, but again, I think it's going to be a Jonathan Taylor week. So I'm going Connor, Miller, Sanders for me.
I'm going to agree on Scotty Miller, Emmanuel Sanders as my top 2, but I'm going to go with Nyheim Hines as my third. I like the upside of what he can bring again this week. I mean, we see it with Phillip Rivers. Yes, we're expecting a big day from Jonathan Taylor from a rushing capacity, and he showed last week he has the chops to catch the ball out of the backfield as well. So,
yeah,
but
and Josh, and I tell you what, and Josh Kelley for the year, I don't think is going to be a bad option. He had a really good week last week. I just, he is on the fringe of being a startable guy. I just want to see it one more time before I start throwing him on some lineups there, because Eckler did not look good last week.
No, Eckler did not look good, and that is a good. That's a good pivot. Nice little transition right there. We're going to pivot to that. You got the matchup. We got the Chargers at home opening the second opening of SoFi Stadium.
Wonder how they change it up for the Chargers there and make them feel like home. Because why aren't the Chargers still in San Diego? That's just stupid.
Yeah, let's work off of that. Why are the Raiders in Vegas? If you want to go that way.
But that's a good move, though.
Yeah, sure. For betting purposes for the NFL, yeah, I get that.
That's a great move. Oakland Stadium was cool.
So
great
Eckler.
Move.
We want to touch on that real quick. Eckler at home, the matchup against the Chiefs, high scoring game. They're going to be trailing. We only saw the one catch for Eckler last week. He wasn't involved as a pass catcher, which was absolutely absurd. And that was really a big to-do for the first couple of days this week on Twitter amongst the fantasy community. How do you view this?
I told you about it all year, dude. Tyrod Taylor, they are going to stack the box, and they did.
They did.
You're going to see that every week until Justin Herbert gets out there. So
that's for sure.
It's tough, but I think you're going to see a reset from Austin Eckler this week. I think he's going to be a lot more involved, and I think it's going to be a start for him there this week. Again, he did not look good last week, but I think it was a lot of him, but it's a lot of these defenses how they're playing the Chargers. I think the matchup this week, I think Hunter Henry is going to be a really good pick. I think he's going to be the guy to own, and I think you're going to see Mike Williams possibly get in the end zone here this week. So, there we go. All of our listeners have got Anthony Miller. I love it.
Right.
I hope you start. And thank you, by the way, for saying Anthony Miller, not just Miller, because now we got Scooty to be able to talk about.
Yeah, you got old Scooty Miller out there you could be worried about. But no, we're picking one here between Will Fuller, Anthony Miller, or Deshaun Jackson, which, first of all, we're going to just take Deshaun Jackson. We're going to grab that name. And we're just going to boo, knock him right off the table. We're not going to worry about Deshaun Jackson this week. You know, we saw him play a lot of the slot last week, and I think it limited what he could have done from a big play perspective. You know, we know with Deshaun Jackson, he really needs the time to be able to extend his route tree, work down the field a little bit more. And with the issues with that Eagles offensive line, Wentz just cannot get the time to get the ball to Deshaun Jackson. So, yeah, I'm going to take that name and I'm just, woo, right off the table.
Not woo, but boo.
Boo, yes. So Will Fuller, Anthony Miller is really the juxt of this question right here. We want which one between the two, Will Fuller or Anthony Miller for you?
This is a lot closer than you probably would think. But, you know, Fuller's got a tough matchup. I like the Anthony Miller matchup this week, but I still think Fuller's going to get the volume to where it's close. I'm starting Will Fuller.
Yeah, I'm going to be starting Will Fuller too. Between those, I've actually, let me look at my.
Corey, I've got the same scenario in some of my leagues, and I'm Miller in that scenario is either I'm starting Fuller in my wide receiver, and Miller's either my flex depending on the league. You know, or on the bench. So
yeah, I've got between the two. If you're looking at my rankings over at rotoballer.com, I've got Will Fuller right now 31st at wide receiver heading into the week. I've got Anthony Miller 33rd. So based on my rankings,
I haven't even seen your rankings. It is close.
It is very close. I'm actually going to go Will Fuller there too. I think there's more of the possibility of a big play broken down the field for Will Fuller. I think he finds the end zone this week. Just because of the sheer fact that they're going to be down by so much. So, yeah, I'm going to go there.
And real quick, like, it baffles my mind. You know, the Titans showed the framework of how to beat the Ravens last year. And you come out last week, and the Browns are the Hunt and Chubb were averaging like 5-6 yards a carry. And they only gave him less than 20 attempts combined. It's just ridiculous. Like, why are you trying to throw the ball against these guys? Run. David Johnson, I don't know how well he's going to do this week, but I think David Johnson's going to have a halfway decent week. So,
yeah, no, I think David Johnson, they're going to have to really kind of focus in and hone on him in that matchup too. We saw
tell
last
those dogs
week,
to shut up.
Yeah, the Woo Dogs, and they're just having an absolute freaking come apart. There's obviously something else. There's a person walking outside. We cannot walk around the neighborhood without the dogs having a damn come apart. So yeah. David Johnson, we saw last week, was very, he trimmed down. He looked a lot quicker, a lot faster. Hopefully the change of scenery, that's just a sign of things to come, is that he's going to play with that chip on his shoulder this year, show that he's not finished. It is a tough matchup this week. I mean, I don't have him ranked near as high as, you would think. I've got him outside of RB2 territory based on the matchup, but definitely a guy that you would want to be in your flex. Pop him into the flex this week.
You say you got David Johnson ranked outside of your top 24 running backs?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wait.
Yes. Let me look real quick. Let me pull it up. We'll see where he's at. David Johnson, I have.
While you're looking, I've got him ranked as a good week. I think you're gonna get some dump offs. Duke Johnson, is he out? I haven't seen. I mean, he's not a guy I'm starting anyway this week, but I haven't seen.
Not been declared yet. I think he was questionable, still showing questionable as a diagnosis right now. He's probably in.
Yeah, I think especially if he does play, I mean, that knocks David Johnson just down a tad. But I think they have got to give him the ball. I mean, again, you just look at the numbers. Like, don't think about the Ravens defense as this just immovable object. David Johnson he's good. If you waited, on an RB2 a little bit or a flex guy, David Johnson's going to be in your starting lineup. He's going to get some dump offs there with this matchup that they have this week. So start David Johnson. I've got him potentially in some flexes and some FanDuels here this week too. So.
I've got him out. I've got him at 25, so just outside RB2 territory. Just to kind of update that. But
I mean, that's I do not own you, Brandon, because you hate him. So
I do not own David Johnson. Was not high on him coming into the year. I had him just barely inside the top 30 at the position coming into this season. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a big David Johnson guy this year. Of course, last week was a big kind of slap in the face. He had a great game. So we'll see if that continues. Bad matchup. Yeah, I don't see it being any better this week for David Johnson. I think he's going to have kind of one of those ho-hum, low-floor type games, not a lot of upside. So, yeah, David Johnson, he's okay. I'm okay with it if he's in your flex. Of course, I don't have him owned anywhere, so I don't have any rostered percentage of David Johnson, so I'm kind of out on that. Any other tidbits? We're kind of coming in the last 5 minutes here of the show. Any other little small tidbits you want to throw out there before we wrap this thing up for the week?
Yeah, I mean, look back at your guys, the guys who didn't perform week one. Some of your Mike Evanses of the world, your Cooper Kupps who didn't really have a good week one. Those are the guys that here week two they're going to get some action. I think you're going to see it. I talk about it all the time. Regression of the mean. Your guys that are out there like your Devontae Adams. Although I think he's going to have a good week this week. At some point they're going to come back down to earth. So look at your guys who didn't do week one, and those are the guys you probably want in. For week two, obviously barring any kind of health concerns out there. So yeah, tight end. Hey, and real quick. Tight end is where you're going to find your value this week in DFS. So go out there and go get some value out there at tight end.
Yeah, I definitely have Jordan Reed picked up in some DFS lineups on FanDuel this week. Low-priced option, going to get the George Kittle workload, I believe, in that matchup with the other options being injured. So, yeah, I think Jordan Reed's going to be a guy that's going to be probably highly owned, but for the value, he's going to exceed that, I think, 1.5. Probably giving you a 1.5x on his value this week is how I'm looking at that. And that's the way to win in DFS is, getting guys at that low dollar value and sometimes, 1.5, double up the percentage. If you can find those players, that's going to get you in line to have a big day on FanDuel for sure. But
and hey, by the way, too, and I've told you to do them. I don't think you've still done them, but head-to-head matchups are where it's at on DFS, man.
See, and I gear more towards tournament matchups. I'll play the GPPs and I gear more towards the tournaments. I like to get in those.
And I love to get in those. I'm in those every week, but I think you got to have a floor to be able to make sure you at least get your entry fee back in some of these. So look into some head-to-head matchups out there. Go and pick one that's a $10 one just to make sure you win some money. And then that way, anything you win in these tournaments is just plus on your money. So just throwing it out. It's a good thing to look at. It's hard to find on there. But if you find it on FanDuel, that's a good thing to be able to make sure you win some money every week.
You mentioned real quick before we pop off of here, you mentioned Devontae Adams. If you don't have Devontae Adams in your FanDuel lineups, you're doing it wrong this week. I think that's
By the way, B, who called Adam Thielen last week in FanDuel?
I don't. Yeah, you did. You called Adam Thielen as a guy to play last week. He had a great week. Yeah, good game. He might be a guy to watch for this week too, as well. The Colts, I think, had a last-minute inactive from Rock Ya-Sin out of the secondary, so they're going to be playing a little bit thin. They're going to be playing from behind in that matchup. Thielen might be another sneaky play on FanDuel if you might have a last-minute roster decision with some of those lineups. You want to kind of make a change here and there. Adam Thielen might be a guy you want to slip in and play this week as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's the reason. Again, I was talking about Justin Jefferson. Is I don't know why I'm not starting him in. I've got him in a lot of leagues, and I'm not starting him there only because I just didn't like his usage last week. But I think as we start to go through, I think he's going to start getting that Stephon Diggs role a lot more. So, but I think this week he could find the end zone. Granted, I don't think the yards is good enough for me to start him in some leagues.
No,
but definitely a guy. If you found somebody that's a little gun shy. Starting off with him could be somebody to trade for.
Yeah, I think that offense, that coaching staff, for some reason, they still like Olabisi Johnson and what he brings to the table. So I think that's going to be a kind of a split between those two. If anything, you're going to hope that Justin Jefferson finds a steady role as a slot receiver for that offense. So that's the only thing I would look for with Justin Jefferson. But parting shots real quick before we get off here and enjoy a full day of Week 2 fantasy football.
I will not be naming my kid Chalupa Batman.
Damn, I was. Of course, for the people that are out there that haven't been keeping up with the show or anything, the Woo Baby, we do not know the sex. We're playing it by ear. We're going in for maybe going in tonight for the induction, but by the time we do another podcast, we will have a baby. Whether he's the co-host on that show or not, I will be here. And I will tell you,
I may have Wee Baby here with me next week, holding him up and answering questions there.
Maybe boy, maybe girl, but either way, I think we need to name the baby something with a B. Yeah, B name.
I don't think we have any B names on either side.
Golly, you're low. You're already sending that kid. Kid's gonna grow up being a Bears fan, and yeah, man,
that's only B he's gonna have in his life.
Yeah, and that's just already living life to a disappointment. Anyways, we're gonna wrap it up. Got 30 minutes before kickoff. Hopefully we helped you guys out. Trying to make this a weekly thing for everyone to come in, send us your questions, get us.
Hey, give them the Woo Fantasy promo code for FanDuel.
It's right. Same thing as what down here on the bottom of the screen. Woo Fantasy promo code over at rotoballer.com.
Get some money.
Get you some discount on all that great premium content we have over there at rotoballer.com. So go there, shoot that Woo Fantasy promo code in there, get you a little bit of savings on your sign up. Same thing for FanDuel. FanDuel Woo Fantasy promo code. Go tell them that we sent you and get some extra money on your first discount there at FanDuel.com. And as we wrap it up, just give everybody hopefully a good luck. Hopefully your lineups are fruitful. A lot of points scored for you this week. We hope you get some wins. If not, send your complaints to the @RealFFGoat over there.
What are you talking about? I had great takes last week. You stunk. What are you talking about?
I did not stink, sir.
We both did really good, actually. Both did really good.
My rankings were inside the top 25 at Fantasy Pros among fantasy expert rankings in week 1.
Out of how many?
Out of like 170 or so.
Exactly. You did really good. I did better. I don't have anything on there to prove it, but I gave you FanDuel guys there. You're welcome.
So that will wrap up our show today. Go out there, get ready for kickoff, get comfortable, sit back, relax. We got a full day ahead of us. And until then, we will be back with you with another episode of Woo Fantasy on rotoballer.com.